Here I am standing in front of the BMW M3 Competition. More importantly, I'm standing in front of the grille of the M3 Competition because I don't want you to see it. Not because it's ugly, well, it is kind of ugly, but because I don't want it to distract you from how good this car actually is. No one can seem to stop talking about the M3's grille, myself included. I'm just as guilty as everybody else. However, I feel like we really need to because the car is so good that I don't think the grille matters. And if you like this video, please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Press the little like button, and if you press the little bell button, you get notifications for every time we upload a new video. The interior of the M3 Competition isn't really any different than the interior of the standard M3. And that's also to say that it's not really any different from a standard 3 Series. Look around the cabin and you'll find that this is pretty much a standard 3 Series inside, with a few nice touches, admittedly. So you get some carbon fiber here in the steering wheel. You get these really cool carbon fiber paddle shifters that have these like little grips on the back. And what I like about the grips on the back is that they're raised for the right upshift paddle, but the little bumps here that are typically raised, they're actually indented on the left downshift paddle. So let's say you're going hand over hand or something and you have the steering wheel turned, just by feeling the back without having to look down, you can know which paddle shifter you're actually touching, which is actually kind of a cool little, tiny little touch. I like that. You get M's new, well, actually it's not really new, it's their current shift lever, which is actually nice, covered in leather here with the M stitching. It's very nice looking and it's, pretty standard. You get some carbon fiber trim and that's really about it. However, this car has the optional carbon fiber bucket seats, and they are sensational. Now, there are some complaints about them. They're not the most comfortable seats in the world for long distances. They're a bit firm, so if you're stuck in traffic or you're driving, hours on end, they're not going to be the most comfortable seats. However, they make this car feel so incredibly special. You sit incredibly low. My biggest complaint with most modern cars in general, but BMWs as well, is that I can never sit quite low enough. In this car, I actually sit too low. It's the only BMW where I don't drop the seat as low as it can absolutely go. I actually have to lift it up a little bit because I'm a little short. These seats go lower than the standard seats. They're also incredibly supportive. I mean, I'm a fairly small guy. I'm only 5'9", about 165 pounds-ish. And typically even the sportiest of sport seats don't hold me in that well because I'm pretty small. But these, they snug me with more snug to go. They can snug an even skinnier person than me. And that makes them feel so special while you're driving. They just hold you in place. They're so unbelievably supportive in all the right spots, which is important. They hug you here, not up here. So your shoulders aren't restricted, but it holds you here in your flanks, like right in your ribs. It really just kind of snugs you in place. The thigh supports also really just put your thighs in the right spot. And again, fairly skinny guy, and they really snug my thighs. So if you're actually a bigger person, you have bigger legs, this might not be so comfortable, to be honest. And that's exacerbated by the little thigh pouch here. I don't know, this little thigh divider, I don't know what the point of that is. It looks cool and it does kind of keep your legs in place, but it also prevents your right foot from moving over to the brake comfortably. So it's a little bit odd, it is a little weird, but you do get used to it. However, I will say that these might not be the seats you want if you have the manual, the standard car, because working 3 pedals with this kind of thigh divider might be a bit annoying. I haven't tried it, but it might be a bit annoying. Aside from that though, I absolutely love these seats. They look fantastic. The materials are incredible. Despite being really thin, carbon backed, and super supportive, they have a ton of adjustment. Usually if you get in bucket seats, they don't have a ton of adjustment. These do. They have adjustable side bolsters and so many cool things like that. The headrest, if you look underneath, there are 2 little screws. You can take this headrest off, which carves out a spot for a helmet. So if you want to take this to the track, you can wear a helmet more comfortably. That's really cool. So they just make this whole cabin and the driving experience feel more special. And to me, if you're buying an M3 Competition, the whole point is to have a car that feels special. And to me, that makes these absolutely worth the shockingly high price tag. And if I'm buying this car, I would ditch other options just to get these seats if I had to. These seats, to me, are a mandatory option. If you are getting this car and you don't mind sacrificing a little bit of long distance comfort, and it's really not that bad, just a little bit of long distance comfort, I think these are the seats to get. They're absolutely wonderful. Aside from that though, this is a 3 Series cabin. Not that much different. One of the first things you notice is just how much different the Competition feels. In fact, it took me so much by surprise that I actually reached out to BMW and asked, have there been any specific changes to the chassis, steering, suspension, anything that would make it feel so different? And the answer I got was, no, there haven't been any changes. And that's blowing my mind. It honestly feels like there has to be some sort of bushings or ball joint changes for the Competition, because it feels so much more dialed in than the standard car. Now, I think a lot of that has to do with the additional power. So while the Competition has the same engine, this has 503 horsepower versus the 473 of the standard car. More importantly though, this has more torque, a lot more torque. So instead of the measly 406 pound-feet in the standard car, this car gets 479 pound-feet of torque. That's a big bump. That additional torque, combined with this 8-speed automatic, really allows this car to come alive a little bit. And I know that sounds odd, because one of the big discussions with this car before it came out was the 8-speed automatic versus the old 7-speed dual clutch auto. BMW replaced the beloved dual clutch with an 8-speed torque converter automatic, similar to every other BMW. However, because it feels like this transmission is the transmission that this car was designed for all along, it just feels right. So when you combine that gearing from the transmission with the extra torque, and this powertrain just comes alive in this car. It feels so responsive, and there's just so much torque all over the place. You have immediate power. Now, typically an M3, its engine is a big part of it, but typically, steering and chassis and things like that are more of what an M3 is about. However, I think with this car, the powertrain dominates the experience in such a positive way. It feels so good to use all the time. Now, I'll admit, I don't think it sounds brilliant. It kind of just sounds like engine noise from the inside. From the outside, it sounds pretty good, but from the inside, it just sounds okay. But I don't care, because it's just so enjoyable to use. It's such a joy to actually drive this car and use this engine. There's just so much power, and it's easily accessible. You don't have to be throttling it hard all the time to use it. You can kind of just dip your toe in and you get this lovely squirt of power. And it's more than enough to overtake anyone or exploit a gap in traffic, or even just bomb down your twisty back road. It just allows you to use it so freely without having to really mob on it all the time. That's really nice. What's interesting is I found with the standard car, I really needed to kind of row the gears and work the gears and stay in its power band to really get the most out of it. But with this, it just feels so good. And the shifts, honestly, anyone complaining about the fact that it's an automatic versus the dual clutch, don't worry about it. It's great. It's great. Is it quite as sharp and crisp as the dual clutch? No, it's not. But it's so close that it doesn't make a difference. And because it's such a good automatic when you're driving it as a daily, which you gotta remember, the M3 is supposed to be, your daily sports sedan. When you're driving it as a daily, it is better. So I think the trade-off is worth it. Would a dual clutch be more fun? Yes, I think it would be. Would it be as comfortable to live with every day? No, it wouldn't be. So it's a trade-off, and it's a fine trade-off. I don't mind it at all. Now, another reason why I think that this car specifically feels so much better than the previous car I drove is this seat. Now, this car is fitted with the optional carbon fiber backed sports seats. My standard tester had the normal regular M3 seats, which are fine, they're great seats. But these are just so much more special. For starters, I feel like I can sit lower. So I feel like I'm more in the center of gravity of the car. So I feel more planted in the car, therefore I feel like I can feel the car a little bit more. Another thing is they hold you in. This is the best seat I've ever driven. This is the best seat in a sports car I've ever been in. It holds you in all of the perfect places. I feel so locked in to this car, and it just gives me such a sense of confidence when I'm driving it hard. It gives me this wonderful sense of connection to the car because I'm not moving anywhere. I'm not sliding anywhere. I feel perfectly, it's like I'm stuck in granite. I just don't move, and it's lovely. There is a caveat though. It's not the most comfortable seat in the world when you're not mobbing it. I'm a relatively young guy. I'm 31 years old, and my back hurts after a little while. Like after 2 hours of driving, my back is like, all right, I could use a stretch, like I could use to get out and stretch. So it's not the most comfortable seat to spend tons of time in, but the trade-off to how good it is to be in when you're actually driving and how special they look and how special they make the car feel is way worth it. To me, even if you're going to live with this car every day, if you're buying an M3, spend the extra money on the seats. They're a must-have option. I have everything set up to my M1 setup, which is everything in sport except for the suspension, the steering. Those two are in comfort, but everything else is sport. Engine sport, transmission sport, MDM traction, all that stuff, sound on, the exhaust sound on. All of that stuff is in the sporty setting except for steering and suspension. And I think that's the perfect setup for this car. It just feels so precise. That's the best word I can use to describe it. It's so precise. The front end is impossibly sticky. I don't know how BMW has gotten this to just completely, it doesn't even know what understeer is. It's just so sharp at the front end. And because of that, because of how precise the front end is, it allows you to kind of play with the back end a little bit more and have a ton of confidence in both the car and yourself. Even though this car is on Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's and they are, bespoke 4S's for this car, it's got a little, BMW star, it's bespoke for this car, and they're very, very sticky. This car will break traction at the rear. I mean, you can push it really hard. You really can. It's got a ton of grip. But if you put your foot down, 479 pound-feet of torque, this thing will spin its rear tires in a really, really lovely, beautiful, progressive way. It kind of just slides itself out. You can really catch it easily with the front end because the front end is so good and because the chassis is so balanced and it's just so precise. It's so easy to slide around with confidence. You can do like these little gentle slides, even at moderate speeds. You don't have to be Chris Harris, on a racetrack pulling huge slip angles. You can just kind of gently slide it, like scoot its ass around a corner, kind of whenever you want, just at will. And it's so easy and progressive, and it just slides so beautifully. It's just a lovely car. I'm not going to do it now because if I do it while I'm talking on public roads, I'll probably kill myself because I'm not, the best. But, when you're alone, when I'm alone, and, there's not a lot of cars around, and I'm on a twisty road that I can kind of exploit a little bit, maybe that has some extra wide lanes, I have the confidence to kind of play with it a little bit, and push it around and have some fun. And I know that the car's not going to bite me because I've been driving it for so long, and it's just shown me how capable it is and how confident I can be in it. Therefore, I'm confident in myself. And because of that, I just have so much fun. That's a great driver's car. Like, that is the testament of a great driver's car, when not only do you have confidence in the car, but it gives you confidence in yourself. Now, prior to driving the M3, I really honestly felt that the manual, the standard manual, was the sweet spot of the range. And it's actually why I requested that car first. Just the idea of having this car with a manual seemed perfect to me, right? It's an M3, it's a sedan, it's a rear-wheel drive, and it's available with a 6-speed. That's the BMW M3 way, right? That's the recipe. So I felt you got to get this car with a manual because it's not going to be made for, like, that's never going to happen again, really, right? The next M3 is probably either going to be hybrid or full electric. So the idea of getting one with a manual, I mean, this is your last chance, right? But even still, I think this is the better car. I think the competition with the automatic is the car to get. And I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to say that if you hold on and wait just a little bit longer and get the M3 X-Drive, Competition X-Drive, I think that is going to be the best version, because it's going to just stick so hard to the road with all-wheel drive. I can only imagine how fast this car will be with all-wheel drive. And because it's BMW's X-Drive, it's going to be rear biased. You're going to be able to put it into 4-wheel drive sport mode and pull slip angles and push the tail out. It's going to let you do that stuff because, and we know that because the M5 lets you do that stuff. So we know that that's going to be a brilliant driver's car, and it's going to be even faster and even more relentless because this thing is relentless. It is so fast everywhere, all the time, in any gear, at any speed. You put your foot down and it just shoves you back into the seat. Now, there is no question, BMW's best car is the M2 CS. It's basically BMW perfection. It's everything you want out of a BMW. Small, coupe, rear-wheel drive, 6-speed manual, 6-cylinder engine up front. It is, the classic quintessential BMW recipe that we all love, and it's nailed to perfection. However, this car, the M3 Competition, with the 8-speed automatic, it's damn close. In fact, because it's a better daily driver, I think I'd prefer to own this. I still think the front end is pretty ugly. I really don't like it at all, actually, the front end. The more I've lived with it, the more I still don't like it. The rest of it does look cool. I have issues with a lot of the styling bits on it, but overall it looks pretty cool and it's exciting, and people, look at it like crazy when you drive by. It definitely looks special. For better or worse, it looks different. But I don't care. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about how it looks. I absolutely adore the way this car drives. I adore these seats, and for those two reasons alone, I would pay my money for it. Yes, it's a little too expensive, but just ease off the options and it's not, horrifically expensive. So, yeah, this gets the Nico stamp of approval for whatever the hell that's worth. I would buy this thing if I could afford it. I'd buy one and I'd never look back. So that's the BMW M3 Competition. It's a sensational driver's car, one that far outdrives its looks. If you're concerned about the new M3 because of the way it looks, just squash those concerns right now. It is among the very best driving M cars BMW has ever produced, if not the very best M3 ever made. It is so insanely good to drive that I don't care what it looks like, and I don't like the way it looks. But if I had the money, I'd buy one of these tomorrow in this color.